This is Shane Harper from Good Luck Charlie and God's Not Dead, and you're watching Dispatch Radio.
All right, folks, we're going to talk about a film that we mentioned very briefly as we posted the trailer. It's called The Hornet's Nest, and what I loved about this, the catchphrase, the tagline is, this is not based on a true story. This is the true story, based in Afghanistan, the violence there, the war there, and the amazing sacrifice that our men and women are doing overseas for us. And we have a great person involved with the film. Talk a little bit about it. His name is Captain Tye Reedy. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That's awesome. I know that the world premiere was out in Texas, and it's breaking in some limited release in the Texas area and Oklahoma. So folks that are listening online, we have a great following over in that part of the country. So if people can get out and catch a local screening before it kind of goes wide, I believe Memorial Day. So tell everybody a little bit about the film and what they can expect from The Hornet's Nest.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the support for the film is overwhelming, and I know I speak on behalf of all the soldiers and Marines that were involved that we really appreciate it. And also, just a caveat, I'm speaking to you on behalf of myself as a citizen. The Army may or may not have blessed off on it or anything like that. So I'm speaking to you as a citizen, and everything I say is in that capacity. So again, I appreciate having me on. But the film itself, it's as close as you can get to combat. Everything you will experience everything but the smells, and that is just everything from the emotional aspect, the highs and lows, the actual sounds of a bullet. What a bullet sounds like, buzzing past, your ear, and because in the film it's all natural sound. There's no sound effects, anything like that. Everything you hear is what we heard. So I think it's pretty powerful. It'll show just the bravery and the heroism of what we ask our soldiers to do, especially infantry type soldiers out on the front lines. What we ask them to do on a daily basis is just incredible, and I was completely blessed to be able to be company commander for Cougar Company in No Slack. It was a blessing, and I'll never forget it.
What was the time frame that you guys were able to film this picture?
Well, all the footage, from the film comes from a couple different sources. Primarily, obviously, Mike and Carlos Betcher. They're news correspondents for ABC at the time. And then also our battalion chaplain for No Slack, Chaplain Justin Roberts, also carried video and still camera with him at all times. And then for Cougar Company specifically, our medic had a camera with him and was able to keep it on for the duration of the pretty good duration of the battle that we had on our objective. So the footage that you see throughout the film is based on Carlos's and Mike Betcher's year-long deployment to Afghanistan together. I think it was the first time ever a father and son journalism team were embedded with troops on the front lines for a solid year. So the footage is from a year. They had over 500 hours of footage to go through. I don't know if that answers your question.
Absolutely, and I think it really does go to the point of the tagline, right? This is the true story. So, folks, you're not getting a Hollywood commercialized. You're not getting anything that's sort of like being handled through the lens of an agenda. This is a lot of point-shoot journalism and a lot of real-life footage from real-life events without having, a script, so to speak. It's a lot of like back-end editing and storytelling rather than front-end.
Right.
Okay. So, Tye, how long were you there?
I was there, I was there a total of 9 months. It was a year-long deployment, but because I had done a deployment less than a year before that unit left, I was with the 82nd Airborne before the 101st Airborne, and I had done a deployment to Iraq, 2 actually, but the latest one was from 2008 to 2009. And at that time, our leadership of the Army and the military, I believe it was Secretary of Defense Gates that mandated that every soldier gets 1 full year at home, 12 months at home between deployments. So therefore, I had to wait a couple extra months to deploy, and I met the unit downrange and took command of Cougar Company in February of 2010.
What about the film is something that separates it from other well-respected Hollywood films, like Lone Survivor, for instance, that was very recently done. What about The Hornet's Nest do you believe really captures some things that folks may not really have gotten their head around?
The fact that, like I said before, that Hollywood, there's no spin, because you can't. It's all real footage. You can't spin reality, and so that's what separates it from something like a Black Hawk Down or the Lone Survivor or anything like that. Even if you listen to interviews and stuff with the people who are actually in those scenarios, that those events got turned into a Hollywood, major motion picture, there is still some,
storytelling and creative license.
Yes, storytelling and things that need to things that Hollywood chooses to put in there for whatever reason. I remember I'm a West Point graduate. When I was at West Point, We Were Soldiers came out at that time, and they brought Hal Moore to West Point to speak to us, to the cadets, and we got a chance to ask him questions. And one of the questions asked to Hal Moore was, did he find anything that was kind of off base or had to spin on it? Yeah, he mentioned something about one of the scenes. Mel Gibson, senses an enemy behind him, and he turns around and shoots him, without any warning. That type of stuff was kind of off. So there's nothing of that in the Hornet's Nest. So I think that's what separates it, and why every American should see it, because it's the truth.
What is it about Carlos and Mike in particular that really surprised you? I mean, having someone with you guys that long is, just in and of itself, life-changing. What is it about them that you think, that you observed, really changed the most?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Just asking, relative to Carlos and Mike, and there they are on the ground, they're filming for so long. What about your interaction with them? What do you think about you were able to observe what changed in them?
I wasn't around Carlos at all, actually. Because I was part of a bigger unit and a bigger battalion. Carlos actually had to redeploy early before Operation Strong Eagle 3, which is highlighted in the film. He was with his father, Mike, the majority of the time with the Marines and in Helmand Province, and then 3rd Brigade out of the 101st Rakistan, and I believe it was Kandahar Province. But ABC had to pull him back a little bit earlier than Mike. But as far as Mike, Mike's been doing this longer than pretty much anybody in the Army. He set up CNN's first war correspondent's desk. He was in Beirut. So, he's more battle-hardened and weathered than most soldiers. So Mike always knew what he was getting to. Whenever Mike was around, you really didn't know he was around, because he knew where to be, what to do in certain situations. But I think and I've heard Carlos and Mike speak on it and answer this question. I think just the renewed appreciation for what we ask our young men and women to do on a daily basis on behalf of this country, and the fire that it lit in them to tell our story, I think, is what was significant to them.
You mentioned the amazing young men and women that do this, like yourself, and one thing that's always a little hard to do. I know I have a son that's 18, or getting ready to turn 18, and it's one of those things where you're trying to convey, the dark side of this, and you're trying to be honest with them to say, our power is so amazing. We're so skilled, and we're the best at what they do. But you do have to be real with that. So what do you tell young people, to kind of prepare them for the mental part of that? You know what I mean? To kind of smooth some of the edges a little bit before, it's just, it's overwhelming. I haven't seen the Hornets nest per se, but we've seen, doing what we do, we see live footage all the time of stuff that we won't even air. So I can't imagine, being there face to face with it.
Yeah. So are you speaking of soldiers that are already, under my command, or kids, young people that are thinking about joining?
How about thinking about joining first? Let's go that route.
Yeah, well, it's probably easier, I would say, nowadays than in years past, like the Vietnam era, where we had the draft and stuff like that. Because we are an all-volunteer force. I mean, 99% of the young people that come in are just, true patriots. They want to serve their country, and so they have that burning desire. And I'm an infantryman, so the young people that choose to become infantrymen, usually have that burning desire. So it isn't too difficult, but as far as preparing them for what lies ahead, and when our nation's leaders ask us to do the dirty work, in order to prepare for that, and the best way is to plan and resource and execute extremely difficult training before you deploy. So as close as you can get to realistic training when you're back home, is the best way to do that. I don't know if I answered your question, but
sure.
I work at West Point now. I'm a tactical officer at West Point. I'm in charge of about 80 cadet candidates at the preparatory school at West Point, and they volunteer to come here just like young people that enlist, and they know. We're a nation at war, even though we are winding down, and we already have in Iraq, and we're withdrawing from Afghanistan, whatever that ends up looking like. But there's always going to be something. There's plenty of hot spots out there that I think they come to places like West Point, or they enlist in the military with the expectation that they're going to be asked to do hard work for this country, and I think they want to do it. So it's really not something that has to be ingrained into them. They come here with that desire, or they enlist with that desire. Like I said, the majority.
We're talking about the Hornets Nest. It goes wide on Memorial Day. It's possibly in your area. We're going to link to the schedule so you can look for some of the theater screenings and that kind of thing. And we've been talking to Captain Reedy about the film, understanding a little bit about, filming live, using actual footage from ABC embeds and, the different footage there by the chaplain and the medic, and trying to piece this together to really capture, the essence of what's actually happening, the conflict on the ground in Afghanistan. And the one thing that I think most people, we hear a lot in the press, is everyone's so war-wearied and America's all war-wearied and all that. And do you think that's a little bit of the case, and a little bit about where we are as a divided society? There's people that really are that war-weary and they're ready to throw their arms in the air, or do you think they're still and that away from the folks that are like, listen, no matter what it takes, we'll stay and we'll do what we can because we're America? I mean, what is your impression of that now, especially now that you've been home?
I don't. I'm not gonna answer on behalf of the public or my views on the public, but what I can comment on is that the soldiers that I've known and the soldiers that I do know and I work with and I have worked with are fully committed to what our nation asks us. Like I said, it being a volunteer force, we have all volunteered to do this. But I will say, yeah, is it tiring? Yes. I mean, I'm an officer. I've been on 3 year-long deployments, 2 to Iraq and 1 to Afghanistan. There's non-commissioned officers out there that have been on 5, 6 deployments. You can look at the numbers of the divorce rate, the suicide rate, stuff like that, and then I think the numbers speak for themselves. It's obvious. It's definitely a strain on not only the individual soldier but the families as well. I mean, let's see. Three of the 4 lieutenants under my command were ended up being divorced. And I would venture to guess that on the illicit side, it's even an even stronger number. So, I can't sit here and say we're war weary or that we're immune to anything like that. We are humans, and it does get tough. But like I said. Everyone that I've ever worked with and known is completely committed to whatever mission we are given and do it to the best of our ability.
And to better understand what he's explaining, I think really comes to light in The Hornet's Nest. It's a great film, and I love it. This is not based on a true story. This is the true story, using actual footage from Afghanistan over the course of a year with ABC embeds. And Captain Reedy, really do appreciate it. I really appreciate your candidness and really diving into this from maybe a different angle than what you're used to even. But I know our readers and our listeners are very intrigued by this and have followed for a long time our coverage and others who have been covering Afghanistan and support the troops wholeheartedly and pray for them daily. And we're anxious to support a film like this that we can really use as a tool to communicate what it's really like. And if nothing else, educating young men and women before they go, maybe helping people remember 20, 30 years from now, that's something like this can have that kind of legacy. So thank you again for your time and fitness into your busy schedule.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right, awesome. Folks, make sure that you check out The Hornet's Nest. We'll try to link to the schedule, and you can catch a screening in your town.